I want to tell the story of a young mother and her 5-year-old son who lived in the flat in the Ballymun area of Dublin. She had been a patient in the psychiatric clinic in Ballymun for her time spent in this flat, and felt that when she was speaking of not being able to cope, of anxiety attacks, of self-harm, that no one ever really heard her. She walked from her flat that morning, went up to the 6th floor with her son. She picked him up and wanted to jump. I want to stop if I can for a brief moment just to tell you that I'm the young mother who I'm telling the story about. It's me. I've lived with the shame with this for years, but not anymore. It stops as I stand before you and tell my story. Shane was growing into a beautiful, caring, loving young man, but the cold, hard knock of mental health would hit our family again. Shane was suspended out of 2012 alone, 6 months in a psychiatric unit, admission after admission, because he was self-harming and trying to commit suicide. I can remember the first time he was taken in was the 21st of February 2012. Shane had tried to hang himself. I got word. I was in work, I came home and I rang Joanne Featherson. She was at my door in minutes. She gave me the number of Pieta House. I rang and explained my son, but was told it was after 5 p.m, there's no one available. You see, in this country you can't have a breakdown after 5 p.m. It's an absolute disgrace. I was told I'd get a call the first thing the following day. I got a call the following evening, but by then Shane was admitted. It was then too little too late. The 4th of October the same year, Shane put on Facebook, "Goodbye this cruel world. I'm going to kill myself." At 1:30 a.m, word came through. Shane had been found. He was in the Mater Hospital with his wrist cut badly. When we got to the hospital, Shane was in casualty, standing against the wall, no chair, no bed, and he'd been there for quite some time. I was horrified at the so-called professional, the nurse. I asked, can he lie down, as there were 2 empty beds. She told me no, they were for sick patients. I went and took a chair and she said that was for people getting their blood pressure took. I gave her a harsh look. I took the chair and said to her, "This is my child, he is sick and he will sit on this chair." The following morning, the doctor, after me being 12 hours sitting on the floor beside my son, was told we had to make our way to Blanchardstown Hospital, as this was our catchment area, and due to cutbacks they couldn't get us there. In April of this year, Shane took an overdose and I couldn't wake him on the Monday. I got into A&E and was told after sitting for hours there was no beds, and no beds in the surrounding Dublin hospitals. I took my very sick son home and watched him with such fear in my heart, because I knew he was so low, he just didn't want to live. On the following days I rang every department I could to source a bed, but there were none. I had to go onto TV3 and beg for a basic human right, that because of cutbacks was not available, and then held a protest with the Andy Morgan Foundation, who have supported me through all this, and members of the general public. We also organised a march a couple of weeks later to the Dáil, and was overwhelmed by the support of people, listening to stories about how the system was letting people down. We just didn't do this for Shane, did it for other poor souls that were too like Shane, suicidal and being turned away from A&E, and the saddest and the hardest reality that we know now, some have come back through the doors in body bags. That Friday at 9 p.m, 4 days later, he was turned away from A&E. A bed became available for my son. He was sectioned under the Mental Health Act and was an inpatient until 3 weeks ago, because I got my beautiful son home after 8 long hard weeks. When a person is sectioned under the Mental Health Act, the CALPA team come along with the guards, take them to hospital. But surprise, surprise, there's only one CALPA van throughout the island of Ireland. They had to come from Bandon in Cork to collect Shane. That Friday night, it's an absolute disgrace. The crisis in our mental health system is not down to the doctors, nurses or staff. It's down to cuts in funding to the mental health system. There needs to be a review of this, because it's not working. We need resources put into our communities, and best practice is a must. It's a duty of care that our most vulnerable in our society justly deserve. Not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. We need 24-hour care in our community. When our young people are presented to A&E with suicidal thoughts of self-harming, they must not and cannot be turned away. This has to stop. We have to get the message out that mental illness is only a small part of a person. I ask each and every one of you to look and see the person, not the illness. It's like any other, and only then will we break down the stigma and the barriers that are up. Only then will this country wake up, not to be sweeping it under the carpet as it has for years and years. We all stand here today with the same message to the Minister, Riley and Lynch. We will not and cannot take any more cuts to the mental health system. We are losing lives because of this, and surely this shows in the suicide statistics. I survived suicide, and now my beautiful son has too. We're both alive and living our precious lives because no problem can't be solved. Suicide is not the answer. It took me best part of 20 years to tell my story, and if this helps even one person step back and think, well, if they did, I can, then I'm glad I stand before you. We have to keep raising awareness about suicide and mental health. We have to tell our young people to speak out and reach out for help, because help can come in many forms. Let them know that they are not alone, they have a voice and they won't be silenced. Love and light to you all, and thank you for listening to my story.
Marcus Howard, test 1, 2, 3.